What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of SSPN Postgame. I'm Jude, that's Ethan, and we are going to talk about this ugly game from the San Antonio Spurs tonight. Ironically, honestly, from how it looked optically, Ethan, as Winky is
I didn't
making
even know he was in here.
he's making his presence known right off the bat.
Yeah, my
And
bad.
that was something the Spurs did not do in TD Garden tonight, Ethan.
No, not at all, Jude. And I know you couldn't catch a lot of that first half, but let me spoil it for you. If the
Uh-huh.
scoreboard didn't already do that, it was very, very ugly. A lot of that stemmed from the fact that I think we started out 1 for 16 or 1 for 17 from 3 point land, and it seemed like Boston just couldn't miss. And that's their specialty, right? They're going to live or die by the three, and for the most part, they live by it. They don't usually die from it. And what sucks, excuse me. What sucks about Boston is they could also beat you up on the inside because they have so many bigs. So we got
Uh-huh.
out rebounded 56-38, and it felt like the Boston Celtics were getting extra possessions pretty much every single time down the court, especially in that first half. Now it was competitive in the second half for a little bit. We won the third quarter, and it was pretty close in the fourth quarter. But at no point in this game did it feel like we actually had like a real shot of scaring Boston. They felt pretty comfortable the entire time. And Jason Tatum had an easy 32 points and 14
Yeah.
rebounds and 7 assists, right? And this was an overall team win for them. Um, and I want to say most of it was because we went 9 for 39 from 3 point land, but we were still playing pretty poor defensively,
Yeah.
especially along the perimeter. And 8 turnovers that night, which isn't super high, but just kind of at bad moments, Jude.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for those of you guys listening, I got off work after this game started. I was able to catch like the first sequence before the timeout when we went down 10-6, but basically everything after that until about halfway into the second quarter, I believe the score was 46-23 when I got home and turned it on again. And kind of what I was thinking before they showed the score was, oh man, how bad is this going to be? How bad is it going to be? And unfortunately, it was a 23-point deficit. And as we talked about on that Wizards game or Wizards post game on Monday, going into this game bluntly with how good the Celtics are, we didn't have a lot of high hopes with the way the Spurs had been playing. But when you
Mhm.
factor in as well that Jaylen Brown didn't play tonight, that makes it sting a little bit more as well.
Yeah, it does. And somebody else is out for Boston tonight. I can't remember who was it. Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday didn't play,
There you go.
so that's
Another
two of their
key.
starters.
Yeah.
And they were still able to dominate us pretty much from tip to end. But that first half, Jude, was just so ugly. At least in the second half, like we were able to hang around with them. We started hitting a couple more threes, but really, like I said, there was no shot at us getting back in this game. The only silver linings, as far as like positives I could find, De'Aaron Fox played pretty well the entire night, and Stefan Castle off the bench was playing very well off the night. Like those two guys were getting into the paint. They were trying to get easy shots, trying to play with high energy on both ends of the court. But the rest of the team was not able to get going. And Victor had a kind of off game, especially from three, 1 for 6 tonight, only 17 points. He had 13 rebounds, but he was really the only guy outside of Harrison Barnes that was getting rebounds for us tonight. Um, and Boston had a good defensive strategy. They were guarding him with guards and wings, getting underneath him, pushing him out to the 3 point line, making him shoot tough shots. And he was definitely visibly frustrated, especially in that first half.
Yeah. Again, you kind of have the synopsis of the first half, while I do not in this one today, Ethan. But the things that I saw from what I did see in the first half is unfortunately the same story that we've been
Yeah.
talking about, Ethan. Getting completely out rebounded. David Delgado entered the chat a little later. So he said, did we get out rebounded
Yep.
tonight? Ethan mentioned it earlier, 56-38. And when they've got guys like Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis, and we're running Jeremy Sohan out there at the center position, there's just nothing we're going to be able to do on the interior defensively or when it comes to second chances. I could go into that even more, Ethan, but that's been the story that we've been, saying on here for the past 2 weeks, basically before the De'Aaron Fox trade and after the De'Aaron Fox trade. Essentially, since Zach Collins was phased out of the lineup and Charles Bassey has got hurt, That has been something that has been impacting every single game that we've played. So, once again, that showed up tonight in a matchup like this against the Celtics. And then when you add that on top of that, Ethan, we were 1 for 16 from 3 in the first half. When that's going to be something that's a constant, as we've seen. And then on top of that, you're not in rhythm and flow offensively, and you're not able to execute offensively, shot making wise, and you're doing that against arguably the best team in the league and the defending champs. It's just a recipe to get blown out.
For sure. This is a game where you need Devin Vassell to not go 0 for 4 from 3. This is also a game where you need Keldon Johnson not to go 1 for 3, and you need Jeremy Sohan to take more than just 3 shots overall. Right? This is a game for the others to step up, and none of them were able to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Matthew C says another masterclass by Vassell and Johnson. Yeah. And as much as me and you, we always try to stay, as respectful as possible, and we want Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson to be 20-point guys, right? Tonight, I get why Matthew's making that comment, because at the end of the day, as much as all of those, the clunkiness, the ugliness, the out of rhythm, the turnovers, just not playing our best game overall, despite that, if Harrison and Devin make a couple more shots, now Keldon didn't really take that many shots, so this doesn't apply as much to him, but I will say I still would like to see more impact from Keldon, but especially Devin. This is a night where he's just got to shoot better, straight up. And same thing with Harrison Barnes as well, because if those guys shoot a little bit more efficiently, just above 50%, they don't have to go crazy and make every shot. That makes this a much closer game at the end of the day, despite all of our issues.
Yeah, I've kind of settled in with Keldon Johnson, in my opinion, of his offense. He's a dependent player. He needs everybody else to be playing somewhat well in order for him to actually get going, because he thrives off of somebody getting doubled, cutting to the basket, being in the right place at the right time, extra possessions, things like that. He's not a guy that can create for himself. For Devin Vassell, I mean, finally he took more 2s than 3s in today's game, but he hit I think a couple shots in the first quarter where it looked like, okay, he might have a good game, because we were able to get him easy looks in the mid range at the elbow area. He didn't over dribble. He just pulled up, hit the shot. And I was like, okay, this might be a good one for him. But as the game progressed, he just got more and more uncomfortable, more and more frustrated. And this is absolutely 100% a game where you need him to step up in a big way. And he did not. I think this is 2 games in a row, really, where he had poor games. We were lucky enough to win against the Wizards because the rest of the team was playing well. But it's getting harder and harder to rely on him, Jude.
Yeah, DA in the comments says, not just this night for Devin, it's like 80% of the nights he is invisible. I would say, it's probably a little bit less than 80%, but as of late, regardless, DA, I 100% get your sentiment. And again, we've had the 2 games where Devin has scored 20 points since the De'Aaron Fox trade, or the 2 games we've lost.
100%. Defensively, Jude, not to jump conversations, but I just wanted to say this. Defensively, I don't understand the matchups at all. I would much rather Victor guard Kristaps Porzingis and let Harrison Barnes, if you want to keep him in the starting lineup, guard Al Horford. They're more of a physical matchup together, I think. And then off the bench, you have to play Bismack Biyombo in this game. 110%. I agree with the comments that they're saying that same thing. Like, Boston's a big team. They have a lot of size. Luke Cornett is not just like a big body. Like, he's a guy that can make a difference for them. And he's played really well this season. Torrey Craig, he's not a big, but he's, 6'8". He got a couple, or actually he didn't get a single rebound. I thought he did. Never mind. But basically what I'm saying is they were able to pound us in the paint, and we have a guy that's 7 feet tall, and his only job is to get rebounds and put his hands in the air and defend the rim, and we just continue to refuse to play him. That part I do not understand.
Yeah, like I said on Monday, if the reasoning behind signing Bismack is literally just a contingency, I just disagree with that logic.
Me too.
Straight up.
There are guys we can sign right now that are more in line with the age profile that can play.
I don't get why we just don't sign Mo Bamba, man. I mean, maybe, and like I said last time, maybe there's something off the court that we don't know about. I trust the Spurs
Maybe.
on that. But even at that point, Alex Len got signed by the Lakers yesterday. Daniel Theis is still out there. Like, there's other options that we can go to address
Mhm.
this issue. But this is honestly, when I'm watching this game, Ethan, and we're continuing to do this, I'm genuinely wondering, like some of the other comments have speculated in weeks past, like, are we not trying to get into the plan? Like, obviously we're trying to win the games, but it's a deliberate decision also to not play a backup center off the bench, which is putting us at a disadvantage every single game.
It definitely feels that way because of how the last, 5 to 6 games have gone. And I get to a certain extent Mitch Johnson's like, I want to stay with this starting lineup for the foreseeable future because he's trying to build chemistry. Like, sure, I can see, all the nuances that go on in an actual basketball expert's
Mm-hmm.
mind in terms of a lineup. But as someone who's a novice and just a basketball fan, it doesn't make any sense, especially defensively. You can't have Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox starting next to each other. I love them both. I love what Chris Paul's been able to do for us this year. He needs to come in off the bench. I love Harrison Barnes. I love that he's a floor spacer. Jeremy Sohan should have started tonight. Jeremy Sohan should have defended Jason Tatum in
Yeah.
that first quarter, not Harrison Barnes or Devin Vassell. And honestly, Stephon Castle should be starting.
Yeah.
This is just another game that proves to me that he should be starting. And when he guarded Jason Tatum in the second half, he
He
didn't
was
stop
actually
him.
giving him trouble. Yeah.
He gave him difficulty, Jude. Yes, much more difficulty than my guy Devin Vassell did. And you just have to hope that Devin can play better off the bench. Like we've talked about that at length. I think maybe that opens up his offensive game a little bit. That's where he found success early coming back from injury. But personally, as someone who's not a basketball expert or has zero coaching experience, Jude, I don't understand these lineups right now.
I echo your sentiment there. Like, we want to be self-aware here and acknowledge that we're just two dudes who've grown up loving the Spurs. We have a little bit of broadcasting experience in our past, but at the end of the day, we're just talking Spurs basketball here. But I
Right.
think a lot of fans along with us are feeling the same sentiment here. And at the end of the day, I kind of see what Reed was saying earlier. Reed 5252. He says soft tank, I think.
Mm.
Me and you, Ethan, we're the and well, Ethan's he's got to go take care of something.
Sorry, I was hoping this was
No,
more
no,
so
no,
Winky
you're
could
good.
leave.
I was just making sure you could still hear me.
No, I can
I
hear you.
wasn't
I
sure.
can hear you.
We're not the type of people to bring this up. Like, we're the people to like be like, hey, let's stay grounded. Like, let's look at this from the most realistic, like not get out of our head. But at this point, it's just there's no other way to describe it. And Ethan can hear me right now. I know he can.
I
And
can.
he's feeling that despite all of that, it just made the most realistic thing as of right now. It feels like it's a soft tank. Like, that's how I feel right now, and maybe that's just an overreaction from the first 5 games of De'Aaron Fox. But this just like Pison said, I believe that it's a contingency. But again, even then, it's like, okay, well, at that point, if Mitch Johnson were to tell me, okay, we'd play Charles Bassey if he was healthy, then okay. Like, again, I don't agree with it, but like I can at least see, okay, it's because of an injury. That's why you're not playing the center and you just don't want to play Bismack because it's total contingency. But if we're literally just doing this because we're like, no, we want to play Jeremy as this backup center and go with this positionless stuff, at that point, I just completely disagree personally.
I echo your sentiments, Jude. Um,
Pison says, Ethan, please get your cat under control.
I
Winky
try.
Winky is an enigma. Okay.
I honestly had no idea he was in this room. I closed the door thinking he would be outside, and then suddenly he was making a ruckus behind me. But he's out of the room now, so we're good. We're distraction free. I agree with what you said. If we're not going to play Bismack, I think we should sign somebody that we will play. The only thing I'm going to give Mitch Johnson and the Spurs coaching staff, this little stretch before the All-Star break, we're on the road. We're getting used to each other still. We're trying to build that cohesion and chemistry. Now we have a weekend off, right, for
Mm-hmm.
All-Star break.
Right. Right.
Mitch Johnson did talk about he's going to take a couple days off. He has a vacation, and then he wants to look at the tape from this stretch with De'Aaron and start really scouting the team and trying to see how he can make things better. And I'm hoping that means lineups will change
Right.
following the All-Star break. If they don't, then maybe I guess we can have some more serious conversations about this, Jude, and maybe it is a soft tank. But that's the only like caveat I'm going to give them for the time being.
Yeah, I will echo that as well, but we'll just kind of we'll have to wait and see next Thursday what the lineups look like against the Suns on a primetime TV game once again on TNT.
On TNT. Yes, sir.
So it's gonna be it's gonna be right back in to the gauntlet with all eyes on you. So yeah, when it comes to this game, man, we've already pretty much kind of got into the next part of this conversation, which is just kind of looking at what we want to see from the Spurs moving forward post All-Star break as we go into this weekend. And of course, despite all the frustration from what we've been seeing on the floor tonight, Ethan, I am pretty excited for this weekend with Stephon Castle and of course getting to see Victor there as well.
And the skills challenge. Chris Paul
Uh-huh.
and Victor are going to be in that together. So we have a Spurs filled weekend, Jude. Yes, I'm also extremely excited. We joked about how it's been a long time since the Spurs been on a Saturday night All-Star game event. And finally we have two. Or I guess three: Chris Paul, Victor, and Stephon Castle. And at this rate, I'm thinking Stephon really does have a shot here. Like he's kind of the
Yo.
quiet. To me, he's the quiet favorite because everybody else is a little bit more personable. I feel like they're more interview friendly. You got Mac McClung, who's the returning, was a 2-time defending champ.
Mhm.
Um, so I think people are kind of forgetting. And plus, he's a Spurs, so nobody really cares about the Spurs. So I think he actually has a real solid shot here.
Yeah, I mean, from what we've been hearing, about how guys have been reacting in practice,
Yeah.
obviously that's what they're going to tell you, but it seems like it's pretty genuine. And when you tie in that, what we've seen in game, you saw the little lob from Keldon there late in the game.
Hmm.
Um, it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to, especially after, I know we went 1-1 this week, Ethan, but again, as we talked about on that Monday show, despite that being a win, that was very ugly. And a lot of those same mistakes, showed up in tonight's game.
For sure.
Um, I'll be looking forward to having some positivity, with that dunk contest from Stephon Castle. But one thing I wanted to get into that doesn't have to do with rotations or, just kind of the stuff that we were talking about. And it is something that we talked about before, but just one final thing on this Celtics game tonight, Ethan. As much as that first quarter offensively, we played really bad. I still felt like at times watching tonight, Ethan, that
Hmm.
team defense, like when we went on and we had that 1-8-0 run, and then obviously, the Celtics kind of responded. But again, the point I'm trying to make is when it actually looked like we might have a chance to get back into it, as much as like you said, it felt like it really from the jump, it didn't feel like when I turned it on in the second quarter, it didn't never feel like we really had a chance to get back into it. But when we technically had a chance on the scoreboard,
Hmm.
it was just we couldn't get a stop. It felt like there were times where we were able to go shot for shot with them, but other than that 1-8-0 run that we had, where I think that's when we kind of cut it to 10 points or single digits.
We cut it to 8. I was the closest it got.
And then they had the 2 threes, or they had an 8-0 run in response with 2 threes and then a Pritchard layup, I believe. But anyways, again, I just want to say that there were times in this game where offensively, again, like we weren't playing that bad, but just team defense just could not do anything. And I understand this is the Celtics and they're so much more cohesive. They're so much more connected. They're so much more experienced. They're so much just better. They're so much more talented, right? But again, this is a Celtics team without Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown. So I understand Jason Tatum's one of the best players in the league, but I think tonight, again, kind of the root cause of things, omitting the first quarter, because I know we scored 19 points and I missed that quarter. But
Hmm.
from what I saw from the second, basically the second half of the second quarter, all the way, through the second half was just, again, I mean,
Yeah.
defense really was the root main issue for me.
100%. 100% is defense. Because in that third quarter, we definitely picked it up offensively. We were actually playing together with a lot more intensity, getting to the rim, especially led by De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle. But we can't make a stop. And that's
Yeah,
what De'Aaron continues to say in every
right.
post game conference is like, you can go shot for shot, you can win some games offensively, but you can't control a game until you learn how to play defense. And a lot of that to me has to do with rotations, starting two
Mhm.
point guards, not having a big off the bench. I think fixing those two problems, maybe we see a huge turnaround for the Spurs team defense. But it also has a lot to do with just effort, intensity, and being together and that communication aspect. I feel like with the frustration that we had in that first half, that definitely affected our defense.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I just wanted to touch on that
Yeah.
before we kind of get into looking forward. Obviously, I think you and I are kind of on the same train when it comes to the rotations. I will say, and this is what I said on Monday, I'm less up in arms about Harrison and Jeremy in the starting lineup as much as I really would like to see Jeremy in the starting lineup because of the rebounding stuff that we've talked about and how I
Mm,
think that will lead to helping out Wemby and him not being as gassed, later in the game. But also, we gotta have somebody to rebound off the bench. So it's like if we're gonna
it's true.
start if we're gonna start Jeremy, that's got to be under the circumstance where we have a backup center. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with all that being said, I was saying I wasn't really as caught up about that one as much as I do see the positives of it. But Stephon in the starting lineup and Chris Paul to the bench, that's one that I'm a little bit more um what's the word? I'm just pushing for that one more.
Mm. No, for sure. That's perfectly valid. The Jeremy Sohan being in the starting lineup would just ruin any chance we had against a big on the opponent's bench. So, good point.
So I'm looking forward to that. That's something that I definitely want to see post All-Star break is Stephon in the starting lineup, obviously open to Jeremy as well. Um, what are some other things that are sticking out to you post All-Star break that you want to see?
I really think that we hit it on the head. Team defense playing a big off the bench. Like I'm fine with
Playing a big off the bench. That's the other one.
team defense and playing a big off the bench. I'm fine. Like if we want to finish the season with CP starting next to De'Aaron, sure, I get it, whatever. But continuing to not play a big off the bench and getting out rebounded every single night, second chance opportunities, it makes it impossible to win, no matter how incredible De'Aaron Fox or Victor Wembanyama could be on an
Hmm.
offensive night. Like they could drop a 50 ball, but if we're going to get out rebounded by 20 and give up, 6 to 10 offensive rebounds, however many second chance points, then what's the point? We're already losing the possession battle, and that's going to affect us defensively.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, people are making some good points in the comments as well because it's hard to play defense, when you've got to give, that type of NBA level intensity for basically 4 straight possessions because you can't get a defensive rebound.
Yeah, 36 seconds of defense is a lot harder than 24 because that's what happens when the shot clock resets. In case, and for context, in case somebody didn't get that.
Man, I know this is a little bit of a shorter episode, but we've kind of been talking about it, Ethan, with De'Aaron Fox. It does kind of make things a little bit more simpler for the Spurs to
Mhm.
break down. So, not to repeat ourselves, not to be too talking in circles, but what I will say to wrap this up here, going into the All-Star break, I would like the Spurs to play a backup big.
Mhm.
I would like to see Stephon Castle start. I think that's honestly like, and then everything else, like that's just as much as we can criticize things, here and there, whether it be, missed shots or missed rotations. Like at that point, they've just got to gel and they've got to learn how to play together as a team through reps. But
Mm.
we got to start there.
I think that's perfectly valid. And just to kind of reemphasize that Stephon point, in his last 10 games, he's averaging 17 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a steal on 47% shooting from the field and 40% shooting from 3-point land. So it's starting to really click for our young rookie Stephon Castle. And post All-Star break, I think he's more than deserving of starting, just simply off his merit. And I think it fits kind of what we're missing in that starting lineup.
Yeah, especially when it comes to, defense on the perimeter, whether that be for a wing like Jason Tatum, or a guard like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously,
Hmm.
those guys are still going to do their thing, but again, just as much as CP3 is still a really solid defender for his age, Stephon Castle is just a different physical specimen than him.
100%.
Everybody's talking about the pinky promise with CP3 in the comments, but unfortunately, I mean, if he continues to start, then that probably was a part of the deal. But I'm just gonna hold out some hope, Ethan.
All we have is hope, Jude. We're Spurs fans. We've been doing this podcast for how many years now? 4 or 5 years?
4 years. Yeah.
4 years, and we have yet to have a winning season, Jude, in 4 years. That's called dedication. When you can when we have to watch these games and we know we're gonna lose, and now we're in a place where we finally have a
Right.
chance to win. Um,
And we're still
and we're
losing.
still losing. So it hurts a little bit more this year, I think, than the last 3.
Especially these last 5 games. But
Yeah.
final note on today's episode, we did play the Celtics tonight. I know it's without Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown, and I've been bringing that up, but they are still the Celtics. So I do
Yeah.
want to give them that. Like they're still
Yeah.
really freaking good. And last thing I'll say, Stephon's shot continues to look better and better. Reed's talking about that in the comments, and Too Clutch Corey says he's getting more comfortable at the free throw line too. I think
Yep.
he was 4 for 4 tonight. And one of the things that you notice with good shooters is they're also, they're good free throw shooters as well. So with that improving on top of, the shots that he's taking, as field goals improving, that
Mhm.
really gives me confidence for his shot moving forward, which was the biggest question mark for him as a player. So
Mm.
it just once again makes his ceiling just that much more untapped, which is another reason why I want him in the starting lineup, because I want him to get reps gelling and meshing, playing off of De'Aaron Fox and Wemby, because that's essentially our big three, Ethan. And next year, those are our guys. Like those are the guys who are going to be making an impact, and even if we do like a 6-man thing with Stephon, which I just said I don't want that, but even if we do that, those guys are going to be on the court a lot together when it
Yeah.
comes to the Spurs' future. So I want to see those guys play together.
Could have said it better myself, my friend.
We appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Once again, know the episodes may not be as long as they used to. There may not be as much to delve into and break down, but we're going to be here regardless and try to give our thoughts as much as we can, as fleshed out as we can on the Spurs. So if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button below. And here's a better. If you want the Spurs to get a backup center, hit that like button below.
Oh, there we go.
And also, if you want to stay updated with the channel, follow us on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero. We'll see you guys sometime next week to recap Stephon Castle's All-Star weekend and the dunk contest, and of course, Victor Wembanyama in the All-Star game, CP3 in the skills challenge, all that stuff. We'll be back to recap it and do a little bit more previewing of the second half, or really what? It's like the final quarter of the
final
season
30
now.
or ish.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all get what I'm saying. The part of the season after the All-Star break. We'll
There you
preview.
go.